Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Let's Talk But No Politics OK podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Lenz, and I'm solo today. um, it seems like I get a guest and then I'm solo, but I am solo today. And if you've checked out the page, I am going to be going over a film series. Not like kind of like the ones that we did last week there with Star Wars or Harry Potter, or you could even say Back to the Future kind of fits into that little bit of a film series mold. I'm going probably, I would say a lost series. I don't think too many people talk about nowadays, but I'm going with Police Academy. Police Academy was the Police Academy movies were something that I loved as a kid growing up. And recently, during these times, there's not really much to do. Cruising through Netflix, can't really go outside too much or anything like that. So I recently had my kids watch Police Academy, the first one, and then so I decided to watch them all because all of them are on Netflix right now, 1 through 7. And I realized that my memory of these movies were not exactly the same, and a lot of them blended in with each other. So, pretty much, just to give a little recap, is Police Academy is 7 movies that spanned 10 years from 1984 to 1994, 7 movies, and made 537.1 million dollars in the box office. So, they were pretty popular movies and everything else. And they had some great moments. There was a TV series. I'm not going to be talking about that. I don't think I've ever watched the TV series. There was a Police Academy cartoon. I watched a little bit of that. That wasn't too bad. Don't remember much of it. I remember the toys were pretty wacky. So that was always cool. And everything else. And that's pretty much it. So without further ado, I'll go through each Police Academy movie and go over it, kind of little brief on what I thought about it. So we have the first Police Academy movie that came out in 1984 and just accurately titled Police Academy. And pretty much Steve Guttenberg is the star, and you got Kim Cattrall and Bubba Smith, big time football player, and those guys, and pretty much centers around Steve Guttenberg's character, Kerry Mahoney, gets into some trouble, and he pretty much is told that he could go to jail, or he could go to the police academy, because all of a sudden the police academy, due to the shortage of police officers, decided they were dropping all requirements. Gender, body weight, skin color, or age. Remember, this is 1984, so you could get a little bit crazy in there. So that's what they're doing. And, he gets into some trouble, and he goes there. And he meets some other cast of characters. You got one guy that was bullied, and Leslie Barber. We got Mr. Larvell Jones, who is his private physician that he meets right before he goes. Bubba Smith is Hightower. Hightower was a great character. I loved Hightower. Kim Cattrall is also in this one, playing Cadet Karen, kind of like Mahoney's love interest. So that's always good. And then my favorite character throughout all the Police Academy movies is Mr. Eugene Tackleberry, who is this crazy security guard in the beginning of it. And then we have Douglas Freckle, who is just this accident-prone person but doesn't really realize what is going on when he makes the problem. And then you got little
talking hooks like this and I'm talking like that for a reason, 'cause that's how she talks. But I'm gonna tell you how she gets real loud later on in the movie.
Okay, so that's just like kind of a little bit of the cadets and the people that you should kind of know. And then, the academy is run by Commandant Eric Lassard, uh, Sergeant Callahan, if anybody remembers Sergeant Callahan. The typical 80s hot blonde going there. And they're all led by Mr. Lieutenant Harris. So there you go. And so just wackiness ensues throughout, pranks. A hooker is brought in to mess stuff up and everything else. It's a really good movie. So they pretty much, it's just pranks, and it's Mahoney trying to get out. And Harris wants him out. And Harris tries to break him, and he's got his cronies that also try to help, get Mahoney to quit. But he can't quit because he was the captain that was his dad's friend, said that he wasn't going to let him quit, and he talked to Commandant Lassard, who said that he couldn't quit. So pretty much, in this movie, there's some great little pranks. One that is a classic staple of it is they kind of go off on like a little vacation or liberty, as I guess you could call it if you were ever in the military or anything like that. And Harris knows that there is going to be a party, because there's always a party. So they bully the one guy, Leslie Barber, into letting him, telling him where it's going to go, his little cronies, Blanks and Copeland. And Leslie Barbara, goes and asks Mahoney where it's at, and he says, yeah, it's at the Blue Oyster Bar. Well, they go there, and it ends up being a gay bar. So that's one thing that always goes on. This is 84. Please don't hammer me down. Don't do anything. But, he sends them to a gay bar. And there's a lot of racial tones to this in a way. And, I was watching this with my kids, and I'm like, oh my goodness, I don't think we could ever do this. We're not doing this one. So, but they finally, there's a riot that breaks out just to kind of end this movie. And they need to go out there, and they get told that they're going to be put in a place where they would be far away from the riot, but it ends up going in, it goes into the area, riot breaks out, and obviously they save the day. And that's when Little Hooks says her patented catchphrase that she says in most other movies, and she says, "Don't move, dirtbag." Sorry if that's a little loud, but that's how she gets. But just typical crazy pranks. Mahoney falls in love with Karen Thompson, played by Kim Cattrall, and then pretty much you don't see them again. Larvell Jones, he's pretty much just a human beatbox, makes anything. If you guys remember him, if you've ever seen the movies, and it's pretty good. This is pretty good. This is a pretty good movie. It's decent, and everything else. Another classic part is Bubba Smith, very tall football player, and he needs help from Mahoney, and they get into this little tiny car, and he rips out the front seat, and he gets to sit in the back and go from there. So that's pretty much that movie in a nutshell. It's a good movie, pretty classic, and everything else. So let's go on to our next movie in the Police Academy series. I'm trying to keep this moving as much as possible, because there's a lot of good ones. So the next one came out in 85, and it changes directors and also writers. There's a lot of change in what goes on here. The producer pretty much stays the same. So now we're going with Police Academy 2, The First Assignment. The newly graduated cadets are sent to a terrible precinct where they need to help improve the city conditions. And we get a new kind of villain in this, where Lieutenant Harris was the villain in the first one. We get Lieutenant Mauser. And, he doesn't want anything to happen to make this precinct better, because he's trying to make a deal so he can take over the precinct and kick out Commandant Lassard's brother from doing it. I'm going to tell you right now, this is my favorite one. This one is a definite watch. So they go in there, and you got all these new cadets, and Mauser's going to be horrible to him and everything else. And one of my favorite things in the whole entire movie, one of the best pranks, because they play some really good pranks on him. Mahoney's new partner is this slobby guy, because Mahoney's still in this. We still got the regular guys, but we don't have Leslie Barber. We're only going to deal with Mahoney, Hightower, Tackleberry, Jones, Freckle, and Hooks in this. So pretty much those are the only carryovers from the first one, other than Commandant Lassard. And this one, okay, let me rewind this a little bit. Okay, so this one, there's a terrible gang. It's destroying the neighborhood and everything else. And the gang leader is played by a great actor, Bobcat Goldthwait. And he's pretty funny in this. So they get into this whole situation, and they get these partners that are very offsetting to them, and they need to pretty much clean up the streets, or they're going to lose their jobs. So Mauser, a way to get back at Mahoney, sends them to patrol a tunnel, and it's disgusting. They're breathing in just straight exhaust, and they're covered in soot. And this is one that I remember from a kid, this prank. So as a revenge, Mahoney takes Tackleberry's epoxy resin that he was using to patch up his helmet, and then it hardens. So he puts that in Mauser's shampoo bottle. So Mauser's washing his hair, and all of a sudden, it starts to harden. So his hands get stuck in there, and he walks around this whole entire precinct naked with his hands stuck on his head, and there's nothing he can do about it. Another great prank in this is, once again, the Blue Oyster Bar comes into play. A little bit of a humiliating thing there, considering we're dealing with the mid-'80s and gay thing. But then you got Mahoney issues a body cavity search on Mauser, and it goes from there. So that's pretty good. But this gang is great, led by Bobcat Goldthwait. And another great one with him in there is they decide to throw a carnival to get people to come into the city to, things up. And then you see the gang come up, and Bobcat Goldthwait's talking, he's like, I love carnivals. I'm trying to do his voice, but I can't. And he's like, is it going to be a Ferris wheel? And they're like, yeah, look, there's a Ferris wheel. He's like, I hate Ferris wheels. They're like, they scare me. And he's asking these guys if they'll go on, these thugs that are in his group, if they go on to the Ferris wheel with him. So that was a really great part in it, that, he was this horrible, ruthless leader, but they always made him a softer side. One thing's going around Facebook right now is where they go into the grocery store, and they just tear up everything, and he yells into the microphone, I need beer now, and they go through everything, but at the end he goes, you got a really nice store here. I'm trying to do the voice. It's like, you got a really nice store here. I've really found a lot of good bargains. So, that's a great thing that I really like. This movie has a lot more memorable moments, but like all the movies, everything looks good, and then everything falls apart as they start cleaning up the streets, but then they don't do it right, so they gotta let all the people out. And then, you know, Captain Lassard gets fired, Commandant's brother, Mahoney gets kicked out, and they infiltrate the. They find out where the gang is, they break them up. You know, and that's everything at the end when they're cleaning stuff up is very fast paced. It's normally in the last 20 minutes of the movie. So there you go. That's pretty much that. At the end of the film, I forgot about that. Tackleberry has a hilarious scene with his partner, Kirkland's, who is a female. Well, obviously, is a female cop, and they both click together because they both love guns and everything else. And there's a hilarious scene where as they're undressing, you know, for adult time, they got millions of guns just flying all over the place. They're pulling them out of their boots and every place that you could think of without getting too crazy. But at the end of the movie, they end up getting married and they drive off in Bigfoot. Classic 80s staples with the Bigfoot going there. But that's pretty much Police Academy 2, their first assignment in a nutshell. This is my favorite one because I think it's a little bit. I think it's funnier than the other ones, and they're not so much police heavy, but they're kind of actually doing police work, even though it does say Police Academy. So there you go. Now we're going to move on to the third movie, and these things were banged out for 6 years straight. Just boom, 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 pretty much. Our next one is in 1986, Police Academy 3, and that is Back in Training. So, premises of this, a little summary. And for the beginning, budget cuts are happening, and there's 2 academies, but there only needs to be 1. And one is led by Commandant Mauser, and the other one led by Commandant Lassard. So Mauser and his lackey Proctor, who is also in the other movie that I forgot to mention, kind of like the dim-witted guy that tries to carry out the plans, get our good friends Copeland and Blanks from the first one to try and sabotage Lassard's academy so they can get it done. And that's pretty much where it goes from there. So we bring back some guys from there. So we got our man Sergeant Mahoney, who got promoted, Sergeant Hightower, Sergeant Tackleberry, Sergeant Jones, Lieutenant Callahan now, Sergeant Hooks, Sergeant Frackler. I can't even say his name right. He's not a big. His character's funny, but it's not anything crazy. And we got Commandant Lassard, and we're going to bring in some cadets here because they're back in training. Not our Lassard Academy guys. He brings in these guys to help him out. And, we get Fleckler's wife, Sweet Chuck, who is from the second one, who's a store owner that Bobcat Goldthwait character is Zed tortured. We get an exchange cadet, Tomoko Nagata. We get Mahoney's brother-in-law, Bud Kirkland. And we get Zed, who is completely rehabilitated, and he's coming in. And we get a couple more with Karen Adams and Cadet Hedges and Cadet Sarah. So those are just kind of, those last couple ones are kind of minor in there. But that is what we got going on. So in this one, they're pretty much trying to get everybody, or Mauser's trying to shut down Lassard's academy. And it's going, as you could tell, always going pretty good there. But Sweet Chuck is with Zed in there. and they're not getting along at all, and he's not happy with it because that is great. If you watch any of these movies, you gotta watch them if they're gonna be with Bobcat Goldthwait. Bobcat Goldthwait is a lost treasure, like Pauly Shore. Okay, I'm just gonna go there. So we got these guys and everything else, and all of a sudden everything's gonna get shut down. You know, typical mayhem and the pranks and everything else. I don't have anything too memorable in this one. You know, you still get the Blue Oyster Bar from all the other ones, but they have a party per se. There's a party, and the governor and everybody is there, and two guys from Mauser's Academy is there, one guy's from Lassard's Academy there, and all of a sudden, it is taken over. And that is when Mauser's guys faint, but don't worry, Lassard's characters pop in because they hop on some jet skis because they're way off on another island and they can't get to it with a boat, so they hop on some jet skis, chase down these villains, take them all out, and there you have it. The end of Police Academy. Can you guess what the final result is? Yes, Mauser's Academy is shut down, effective immediately. And since they stopped the robbery at the party, Lassard's Academy stays open. So that is pretty much the end of it with the graduating class. It's not a bad one. It's not a bad one. Like I said, if Bobcat Goldthwait's in it, it's got to be pretty decent. So now we go to 1987, and we go Police Academy 4, Citizens on Patrol, where the Commandant Lassard sees the police force as overstaffed, overworked, so he starts a voluntary civilian program to work aside with the police officers called Citizens on Patrol. This one has a pretty big star in it in one of the COP program members, and that guy would be Kyle Rumford, played by David Spade. Yes, David Spade was in a Police Academy movie. So they're in the academy in this one, and here we go. So we still get our Mahoney fix. We get Hightower, Jones, Tackleberry. Sweet Chuck's now an officer, and he's working at the academy. We're going to bring in Lieutenant Callahan. We have Hooks in this one as well. Again, we're going to bring in Tomoko Nagato. He was our exchange. Proctor's back, but no Mauser. No Mauser. We're going back with Captain Harris. We got Commandant Lassard and Zed. And we have Tackleberry's wife back in this one. So there you go. And we also have Sharon Stones in this one. Plays Claire Matson. And there you go. But we got some great guys going on here. We got Mrs. Feldman, who's this delightful old lady that loves guns and everything else. So then you have, all these other cadets in there. And the reason why David Spade and his friend Arnie Lewis is in there is because, kind of like a Mahoney situation, they get taught. I'm going to have a beer while I do this too. They get caught skateboarding, 80s movies, and then they do a whole skateboarding montage there. We also get a new guy in there. His name is Tommy House Conklin, who is a big dude, and he knows Hightower from when he was a kid. So that's that. All right. So they all get trained. Mrs. Feldman, she fires like a .44 Magnum and everything else that Tackleberry normally has on him. This one's okay, not too bad. It's got Bobcat Goldthwait. He kind of plays. I'm going back to him because he stands out, and he got upset at one point because he got knocked into a pool and his Mickey Mouse watch broke. That's what I love about his character so much. Is he's supposed to be like this hardcore type in your face guy, but then they get him like really sensitive. Um, and everything else. Same pranks. If you notice anything about these, is they're pretty much all the same. Kind of almost the same pranks. Mahoney super glues Harris's megaphone to his mouth, and they go from there. Once again, they start doing all these premature arrests. They get in trouble for it, and then there's a jailbreak. So they get the COP volunteers, and they start going through and wrapping everybody up. And that's pretty much about that for Police Academy 4. As you can see, they get kind of downplayed and get a little crazy. It's pretty much the same thing, but if you like just good 80s comedies, I would say definitely check them out, because they are good. Now we're going to get to the point where it gets a little... I would say they hit their peak at Police Academy 4, and then we go into Police Academy 5. Assignment Miami Beach. So, here we go. We have no Mahoney in this. And that's where it kind of gets taken down. This one's a little... I don't know about this one. But we're going to bring back Mr. Larvell Jones, Tackleberry, Hightower, Hooks, Callahan. House is in this one. Commandant Lassard is in here. We got Harrison Proctor because we need that. And then we get kind of the new Mahoney character. No more Steve Gutenberg, because I believe he was filming 3 Men and a Baby at this point. That's Sergeant Nick Lassard. And I think they tried to reignite something there, because once again, it's pranks. But what happens here is there's some jewel thief, and they get put into... their bag gets switched with Commandant Lassard's. So the bags get switched, and Lassard kind of ends up with the wrong bag because the bags look the same. Another little classic 80s misadventure there. And the reason why it's Mission Miami, I forgot to tell you about that, is because... So Lassard is in Miami to get an award before he retires. And he's chosen as the police officer of the decade. So that's why he's there, and everything else gets mixed up. This one's not that great because there's no Mahoney. Pranks are played once again, but it's not... This is where the drop-off happens. Big time. It's not as good as the other ones. The storyline gets a little even more chintzy and ridiculous. Once again, last 20 minutes, everything happens. Hightower saves the day in this one. My man Bubba Smith, Hightower, saves the day in this one. And there you go. That's pretty much about it for Police Academy. I'm doing it real quick because I'm trying to keep the podcast down more. If you want to hear more, please let me know. Nothing stood out for me in this movie other than because we got House. When they're on the airplane, they do the classic little thing. House is a big guy. He stands up, he walks to the other side of the plane, so they make like the plane tilt over, and there you go. So that is Police Academy 5, Assignment Miami Beach. This is a pretty good one. It's okay. It's okay. Now we're going to go Police Academy 6, City Under Siege. This one just does another classic plot line. Kind of reminds me of the second one in a way. There's a lot of crime in one area, and and they these guys get called in as kind of like a special force to take it down. They're called the Wilson Heights Gang, and they just start destroying things. So this one we get Nick Lassard back. No Steve Gutenberg. Steve Gutenberg's gone from these series. So we still get Larvell Jones, Tackleberry, Hightower, Hooks, Callahan, Commandant Lassard, Captain Harris, and Proctor, and Frackler makes his comeback appearance. So this one is there's robberies that are happening, and nobody can stop this gang called the Wilson's Heights Gang, and they keep on seeming to be one step ahead of the police, robbing jewels, banks, and everything else. So they come to find out that it's your classic story of it's on this piece of property that they're trying to build a railway on. So what better way to lower property value by a high crime rate, so businesses will sell low, and that way you can build what you want. So they go through all of this, and they find out the mastermind is the mayor. So then they find out too that they're looking to knock out the power, so they knock out the power in the streets and everything else. And that's when they catch the mastermind, find out he's the mayor, and they end up getting the Wilson Heights Gang. Classic part in this is Jones, who does a lot of stuff with his mouth, fakes being a robot to a guy. So that way he thinks he's a robot and everything else, and it's pretty good. And he's like, I'm a robot, kill a human. And it's good. Nothing too crazy in this one. Nothing really stood out. It's just pretty much same old, same old. And that's pretty much about it. I mean, like I said, it's a drop off. Once Steve Gutenberg leaves, I'll go more into this. So then we're on, and I just got done watching this. Ugh. The last couple were a little hard to swallow. That was a hard pill to swallow. It's not even labeled Police Academy 7, but it's the 7th film. And it's Police Academy Mission to Moscow. And this was released in 1994. It's like 5 years after the last one. And this one, let me tell you. So in this one, we got Sergeant Larvell Jones, Sergeant Tackleberry, Captain Callahan, Commandant Lassard, Captain Harris. There's no Proctor in this one. And then we get this new kind of guy that's supposed to be your Mahoney or the Commandant's nephew, like in Mission Miami Beach and City Under Siege and Cadet Connors. This one is Ron Perlman's actually in this one, and he plays a Russian mob boss, which is pretty awesome. It's pretty weird to see Ron Perlman in this movie. So this is like got to be the briefest one of all. There's really nothing great about this. I'm going to make it quick. There's some new game. It's highly addictive. They bring Russian police, bring in American police officers from the great Commandant Lassard. And they're supposed to foil Ron Perlman's plans with this game because he's trying to make a game where when you put it in the computer, it has a passcode so that way you can access all the files. And once again, if you imagine they foil the plans, it's some just stupid stuff. In the beginning of the movie, they tell Commandant Lassard to get into the limo in the front. He ends up going to a funeral and spending the whole entire time with this Russian family, while the rest are trying to foil Ron Perlman's plan for this passkey. And this is not that great at all. Matter of fact, I think this is probably the one that I played mostly on my phone during, and I just wanted this out of my head. But that is pretty much Our Police Academy movies, all 7 from 1984 to 1994. My overall, as I've kind of given it out, is pretty much the stories all kind of blend together. I don't know if I said that before, but from what I could tell from when I was a kid, I remember stuff from Police Academy 2, thinking it's Police Academy and everything else. But they are a great classic. I'm going to say it's a classic film series by itself. Because there is a lot of comedy. It's part of what I consider a great age of movies, especially around like comedy movies and everything else. I think these are pretty good. Like I said, check them out. I mean, I couldn't get into as much as I want because I try and keep a decent time on my podcast. But I mean, this is what I gotta say is pretty good. Pretty good there. And come to find out, only three characters have been in all 7 of the movies. And that's Mr. Larvell Jones, Tackleberry, and Eric Lassard. So, I mean, out of all those guys, only 3 have been in every single movie. That's interesting. And it's very, very interesting to see. And there was word that in 2018, Steve Guttenberg did announce that a new Police Academy film was in the works. He responded to fans on Twitter saying the next Police Academy is coming. No details yet, but it is in a gift bag being readied. So, I mean, do we need another Police Academy? That is what I don't understand. Actually, in 2012, New Line Cinema confirmed that there would be an upcoming movie, but we haven't seen anything from there. In production, a movie due to begin in October, but never happened. They been made to Shaquille O'Neal to replace the late Bubba Smith as Hightower. That would be interesting. I could see that. But do we need another Police Academy, or should we reboot this? Reboot this? I don't think this is a movie where a lot of the gags that we found funny in the 80s. The first one had a lot of racial overtones and a lot of racial slurs, which I was kind of brought back by. So, I mean, that's the one thing that I'm not sure. I think this is a movie franchise that needs to let be and just lay to rest, and we enjoy the way that it is, and remember movies from a great decade as well. I mean, I know I enjoyed them as a kid. I enjoyed them now for pretty much the most part. And I'm going to go over some Rotten Tomatoes scores. I mean, the first one got a 54%. Okay, good. Now, the one that I love the most got a 29%. We're Back in Training got 40%, and all the rest, 4 through 7, got 0% on a review. I would have to say that's about true, but I really like Police Academy, their first assignment. That was a really good one. It introduced the characters that were really great, and like I can't get enough over the whole Zeb Bobcat Goldthwait character, because it gives you such a great mix going in there from such an iconic 80s actor, comedian. Steve Guttenberg's amazing in these because he had that sly charm into him and everything else. But this was definitely a pretty good one. And the Blue Oyster Bar was only in the first 4 movies. So, It was actually in the fourth one twice. That's pretty good. But that's where I kind of got to leave this off. These are movies that you definitely got to check out if you're a fan of the '80s movies, um, and you're younger. I I grew up somewhat in the '80s. I was born in '82, but these are something you got to check out if you like good slapstick comedy with pranks and everything else. Good comedy cop movies. Check them out. The Police Academy series, I feel, is just a dynamic treasure out there. I've never seen the series, like I said. The cartoon wasn't bad, but I was a kid then. But this is an absolute treasure, especially at a time like now where we got plenty of time on our hands. You could probably get through them all in a day. They're not more than an hour and a half long. Or, break them up throughout the week. There's 7 of them, 7 days in a week, 1 a day. And there you go. You watch them all, and I think you'd be pleasantly happy with them. I know I was, other than maybe that mission to Moscow. If you want to skip that, skip it. But watch the other ones and enjoy the characters and everything else. But that's pretty much it for today for this podcast. I hope you enjoyed. I enjoyed watching these movies. It brought back some great memories, and it made me think that this is kind of, like I said, a lost it's a lost film series. It's definitely a lost film series. Definitely is. I don't really have a quote or anything like that. And it's something that you definitely got to watch. There's some stuff that stands out, but nothing 100%. So, no quote today for this. Sorry, guys. Sorry. But I will give you my Truman Show ending and everything else. So, for the Let's Talk, but no politics, okay podcast, I'm Andrew Lenz saying good morning, good afternoon, and good night.